what I'd like to do is talk about a typical day for you. And this, given all you just shared, would be challenging because it's going to be different depending on the time of the month for you.
Yeah.
But in a general sense, and you can specify where in the month this is, talk about when you'd break your fast and what a typical day of meals would look like.
Yeah. So what I've really found is that, women seem to train me personally and all the experts. I have a podcast too. So I'm interviewing female experts, medical doctors and PhDs all the time. And I also have my own medical team that I employ for all of my data and our protocols. But we found that women train better fed. So again, going back to differences between men and women. So I stop eating at the latest by 5:30 p.m. Now I'm about at 4:30. I'm always trying to move it up as much as my husband will let me. So, I'm married. So that's a little bit of a difference too. A lot of the biohackers are single individual men. So I am married. So there is some compromise that needs to come in there. So I stop eating at about 4:30 or 5. And then I'm eating again first thing, usually at about 6:30 before I go to the gym. I'm breaking my fast with what I call a protein coffee. So it's like a biodynamic coffee, but it has about 15 to 20 grams of collagen protein because I think women need more protein before their workouts. And then it has a little bit of colostrum and it has a little bit of creatine, about 5 grams of creatine in there as well. So that's how I start my morning in terms of nutrition. And then I will eat again right after I get back from the gym. And then I will have a third meal. That will be my last meal of the day. So I kind of have 3 separate eating windows, but it's really 2 primary meals and then this protein coffee in the morning.
Okay. Is there any snacks in between?
No, I'm not a big snacker. We want to try to maintain stable blood sugar. So for a long time wore a continuous blood glucose monitor on the back of my arm. I now wear them, maybe like once a quarter. But we also know for longevity, we want to minimize blood sugar spikes. So every time that you eat, you're going to have a blood sugar spike. So the goal there is not only to not have as many spikes by not eating continually, but also to reduce the amount of the spikes. So my goal is always a maximum of a 30-point increase, which is pretty difficult for most people. Most people are experiencing, 80, 90, 100-point spikes, oftentimes every single time they eat a meal, sometimes more.
Talk about why that's important to you. What happens when you spike beyond that?
Yeah, I mean, there are cognitive, ramifications. So a lot of people experience brain fog, but we also know that essentially the increase in glucose and then the drop in glucose is also can be detrimental over time for our blood vessels and cardiovascular systems. Also, there's some links to things even like skin health of having these constant blood sugar spikes. So there's a few little hacks that I can mention that if you eat more carbohydrates or you incorporate more sweets, you're always going to have more blood sugar spikes. That's just as simple as it is. But there's a few things that you can do to minimize those. So some people enjoy a little bit of an apple cider diluted shot before eating a meal. That can help to blunt the blood sugar response. I'm a huge fan of eating your foods in what I would say are the correct order. So you want to have the protein and the fat first, and then have that carbohydrate, or then have that, little bit of sweet. So for me, I'll have a handful of blueberries after my breakfast. I have that at the very tail end of the meal because that protein and fat really helps to blunt the blood sugar response to the blueberries. And then the third thing that you can do is research has shown that even as little as I believe a 3-minute walk can really help that, post meal or post prandial walk can help with that blood sugar response. So if you can do more than 3 minutes, of course, please do. Let's say a minimum of 10, but the research does show as little as 3, we can have benefits on blood sugar.
Okay, so when you wake up in the morning, you have your coffee with the colostrum, the collagen, you go to the gym.
Yeah.
Do you take any supplements before going to the gym?
So if we want to talk about my whole morning routine, we can back up just a little bit.
Yeah,
So
let's get into the details
okay,
here.
the whole thing. So first thing that I do is I have a kind of extensive oral care routine. So we know that the oral microbiome is incredibly important. I think the gut microbiome is pretty well known these days, but we also have a completely different oral microbiome. And this is the entrance into our body. So really important. And I don't know if you've ever seen one of these images. We should maybe throw it up on the screen. But if you see how the teeth are actually connected to the brain, have you seen these images?
I have, yes.
It's unbelievable, right? So if you have any sort of infection or bacteria in the teeth, we've known it for many, many years that it can impact your cardiovascular system, but we also now that know that it has a big impact on your brain health. So I do something called oral microbiome testing, where I actually, along with all my other, thousands of biomarkers, I do oral microbiome testing. But in the morning, first thing, I do my tongue scraping, I do my brushing, my flossing, toothpaste, like fluoride is a big conversation right now. I've been seeing what is called a biological dentist, which is kind of like the functional medicine of dentistry. They don't use a lot of the common, fluoride rinses, and they don't do any mercury amalgams. We can talk about that later, but it's wild because my biological dentist, I remember this years ago, he said that when he removes a mercury filling, it is taken out on a biohazard truck. And I'm like, in what world did we think that putting that in the mouth was going to be acceptable? But when he removes them, he's wearing like a hazmat suit and it leaves in a biohazard truck. So that's a whole other thing. If you have mercury amalgams, I'm sure you've had some great biological dentists on. So oral health, going back to that, I use, a non-fluoride toothpaste, a probiotic toothpaste. So it's actually feeding the good bacteria. And then I do a little bit of light therapy in the mouth. So it has like a red light, which is good for reducing inflammation in the gums, and a blue light, which is good for just whitening the teeth a bit. I do that. Then I have a huge glass of water with a little bit of electrolytes. Then I jump on something called a PEMF mat, or a pulsed electromagnetic field therapy mat. I have like a clinical device at the house. It's called a Pulse XL, but I think of PEMF as like grounding or making contact with the earth on steroids. You get these anti-inflammatory benefits. The unit that I have actually is in a lot of chiropractors' offices, because you can use some of the isolated tools just for reducing inflammation in a specific area, but also repairing damaged tissue and helping with bone. So I sit on my PEMF mat. I also have done a test called a MEAD test. So this is a test that actually measures your voltage of your body. So, when you go to get a scan of your heart, like an EKG, that's an electrical current of your heart. So our bodies actually have a voltage. And I think this will be like the next wave of biohacking and of longevity, is bioenergetic medicine. Super interesting, but these frequency types of medicine that can actually, like, I think of it at the cellular level. So if you think about one individual cell, how can you increase the charge of that cell so it can perform better, right? So you can do that through a lot of things, like light. You can do it with grounding, but you can also do it with PEMF. So I do this PEMF for about 25 minutes in the morning. I do my brain training. I do my meditation. I do my prayer for me. I do gratitude. I call this the time I'm setting my mind before the day sets it for me. So instead of just being derailed by the first bad email or bad social media comment, you've already set your intentions for the day. So I do that. Then I get some morning sun. So we all know we got to get morning sun, 10 to 30 minutes in the morning. It signals to our brain and body that it's time to wake up. I am not kidding. My circadian rhythm is so on point right now. Like, I can tell you at 8:15 p.m. that it's 8:15 p.m. because I'm in bed every day by 8:30. So around 8 o'clock, 8:15, I'm so tired. And it's been so interesting because my mom's actually been visiting from Ohio, and she has not optimized her circadian rhythm. So she's like still up with blue light and watching TV, and she can go to bed at 12 o'clock on the weekends, and then, go to bed at 8 o'clock when she has to work on the weekdays. So really important to set your circadian rhythm. I do that. Then I go to the gym and I work out, about 5 or 6 days a week, usually minimum 5, sometimes 6, but I am making sure I'm hitting a variety of metrics for longevity. So I am hitting VO2 max training. So that's twice a week, and it's one time on my Carol bike. This is an AI powered fitness bike. Love it. It's like getting a great workout in super fast because it actually increases its resistance against your own best PRs. And then the other one is what would be a Norwegian 4x4, but after conversations with experts, specifically Dr. Stacy Sims, she informed me that it would be better to do a 4x6 for women. So that's 4 minutes all out, about 90 to 95% of your max heart rate. And then that is a 6-minute rest for women. For men, it would be a 4-minute rest. And then you repeat that 4 times. But the cool thing is that by doing this protocol, I have taken my cardiovascular age on Aura from -6 years to -11.5 in the last 6 months. So by incorporating this new VO2 max training, it has really yielded incredible results. I mean, cardiovascular disease is the #1 killer for both men and women. So to be able to get your cardiovascular age down like -11.5 and etc., that's great. Very important for longevity. So we're hitting VO2 max in cardiovascular training. We're hitting strength, right? And when I'm doing my strength training, I'm also thinking through how can I build my bone? Because once women hit menopause, our bone density precipitously drops. And one of the biggest reasons for mortality for women is falling and breaking a hip and never coming home. So we need to keep our bones really strong. So what is that in a practical term? It is compound lifting or loading the bones. So things like squats and deadlifts. If you're just starting out, I highly encourage you to like watch a lot of YouTube videos or work with a trainer, because you can get hurt by doing these lifts if you don't do them the right way. And jumping. So jumps are really good for the bones because it's putting pressure on the bone to build them stronger. So doing strength training 3 to 4 times per week, and then I'm adding in these compound lifts to really ensure I have good bone density. And then I measure all this stuff on a bioimpedance scale once a week, so I can see my bone density, my fat mass, my muscle mass. I mean, I'm in the highest metrics for every single one of these categories because I'm training for it, right? My grip strength is 100 pounds. This is in like the top, 1% of 18-year-olds. It's actually, I saw Olympians doing a grip strength on, I think Mind Body Green posted a video. I'm like, how is mine stronger? I mean, I'm not saying all of them, just the ones that I saw, but I just hit 100 pounds on grip strength as a woman. I mean, that's pretty legit. And we know that grip strength is it's a measurement of longevity. It's one of our like gold standard, tried and true longevity measurements. And that's because it's a proxy for overall strength. So we have the strength, also stretching, mobility. These things are really important too to think about when you're programming your workout. And I don't think everyone is. We need to stay flexible. We need to stay mobile. We need to stay strong. And this isn't just for aesthetics. Aesthetics is great, but I'm doing it for mood. I'm doing it for, my future self, like my 80-year-old self, to be able to put that, bag in the overhead bin and be able to, pick up my grandchildren and things. So go to the gym. I come home, I have my supplements, and I don't have supplements before other than the creatine, the collagen peptides, and the colostrum. I have that before workout. And then I come home, I make my second kind of meal of the day, or my breakfast, which usually it's kind of the same thing-ish every day. So I do a couple of eggs for some protein. I do some fermented foods. So I do some organic carrot sauerkraut. I do some avocado with a little bit of EVOO on there. So we have our healthy fats. And then I have a big salad. So the salad kind of varies. I like to mix it up. And then let me think if I have anything else. That's all for that. And then I'll have a small coconut yogurt, and then I load it up with great stuff. So I use these Zen basil seeds, which is 2x the fiber, half your fiber of the entire day. So it's kind of like a chia seed, but it's even packing more fiber in there, more protein. I had another scoop of collagen protein. I had some hemp seeds, half a Brazil nut. I had a couple blueberries on there, and a little bit of flaxseed as well. So I'm getting a ton of protein in that meal right there. And then I take my supplements. I'm taking right now, well, let me say this. I was taking about 35 supplements a day, but this is the first time I've announced this, but I've been working on something for almost the last 2 years that has now been able to really condense that just based on all of the supplements. And I think of my supplements in different buckets. So I have what are called like non-negotiable supplements. That would be what, like, for example, at my clinic, we recommend this to almost everyone. That would be fish oil, high quality fish oil, because some can become rancid, some can become oxidized. I like a brand called Metagenics Omegas. I think from the research I've done, that's probably one of the best brands. We have magnesium because nearly everyone is deficient, and we have a vitamin D. I live in California, but still, my vitamin D is not optimal without taking a vitamin D supplement. So that's my non-negotiables. And then I have whatever I call my protocol supplements, and that is whatever I'm working on. So let's say I got my labs back, and maybe I need to, currently right now, because the LA fires, for example, I have a ton of detox going on. So right now I'm taking tons of extra glutathione. I'm taking, extra sulforaphane. So I'm doing these like Brock shots. I'm doing a lot of even vitamin C. So that's what I am taking for whatever I'm working on. And then I have the third bucket, which is what I call my longevity bucket. So in that bucket, we have things like NMN or NR. We have things like spermidine, which is shown to mimic autophagy, which is great, or cellular cleaning without having to do as much fasting. Things like Metopure, which is urolithin A, which is one of the most science-backed supplements for improving mitochondrial health. And those are things that I think through as like the longevity supplements. And then we also have kind of like peptides and prescriptions there too. Things that are prescription that I'm taking. I'm currently doing a peptide called BPC 157 for regeneration. I do that, a couple times a year. And I also am taking rapamycin for ovarian longevity. So I know that a few people in the space have actually stopped taking rapamycin. As a woman, I'm taking it specifically for the potential ovarian longevity benefits, because these studies have not been yet peer reviewed, but they're showing about 5-year extension lifespan in ovaries. So for me, I'm doing that because we know that as soon as women hit menopause, risk of all-cause mortality increases substantially. So I think one of the big things in longevity for women specifically is going to be, how can we figure out how to delay menopause? So there's a lot of different things I'm trying to figure out there, because I'll be honest, I've talked with some of the best experts in the world, and we still in 2025 don't know exactly why the ovaries are aging at 2x the speed of every other organ. So I think that's a huge thing that we need to focus on. So after I have my supplements and my breakfast, then if I am in my follicular phase, I will do a cold therapy and I'll do a red light therapy. I kind of mix those, intermingle those. So usually I'll do red light and then I'll finish off with a cold and then I'll take a shower. If I'm in my luteal phase, I don't do the cold therapy. So I will skip the cold therapy. I still do the red light therapy and then I take a shower. And then I kind of build the rest of my optimization into the rest of my day. So I'm actually at my desk. So right here, I can't bring it to the camera. Right next to me over here, I'll bring a little nasal cannula. This is something called a Nanovi. So I have this at the desk and I just put this into the nose and around the ears. This is good for reducing oxidative stress. It's also great and shown by their research to improve protein folding. And then I will usually have my PEMF right here. So I'll bring it in here, use that throughout the day. I have, this is a little red light therapy for, this is hair growth, this one. So this is a red light cap for hair growth. So I'm doing a hair growth protocol to see how thick I can get my hair. I do that for 10 minutes a day. And then I have another red light therapy that I do throughout the day. This is intranasal photobiomodulation. So you actually put a red light up through the nose. And, when we think about red light therapy, the benefits to the mitochondria, which is so incredibly important for our energy and for, our aging. One of the hallmarks of aging is mitochondrial dysfunction, right? So we want to keep our mitochondria really strong. So I'll do this I look crazy at my desk most of the times when I'm not on a video call, but I'll have a little intranasal red light that's doing photobiomodulation to the brain. It actually has a cap too. So the red light can actually penetrate through the skull and also do, really energize those mitochondria in the brain, which I find to be really also beneficial short term, just for improving focus and, and all the cognitive benefits. And then also I do my work in like 90-minute work blocks. And then I make sure that I'm getting, steps in all throughout the day. So I'm aiming for, of course, minimum 10,000 steps a day, but I usually get far more because I'll schedule walk and talk meetings and, I'll take my calls on a walk, or I have a walking pad out in my living room that I don't like doing the walking pad at the desk because I find my posture gets really compromised because I'm trying to like walk and look. It's just, so I haven't found that to be the most successful, but I do have it really close so I can just jump on there whenever I need to. So that's essentially my morning to midday routine. Then we have an evening routine.
Yeah, we'll get there after, but I want to talk more about the supplement piece. You mentioned this being the first time you talk about the fact that you've streamlined it. Talk about before and after and what that change was.
Yeah, when you think about taking a kind of obscene amount of pills, right? There's a lot of reasons that it's not the most enjoyable. A lot of people will get pill fatigue. They just simply don't want to take so many pills anymore. I'm still getting pretty much the same nutrients, but it's just made my life so much easier. Now, I will be launching something. It's the first thing. I would have never made something that I didn't think there was an absolute need for and that I thought I could do the best. And of course, everything, lab testing and highest quality everything means absolutely everything to me. So I'm excited to launch this later this year, but it's just ease, right? Like it's all the things that you need, but it's in a very simple to consume form, made for women, by women, vetted by women, doctor women approved, the whole 9 yards, because again, women need different things than men. So although multivitamin could be good, we just now know from a health standpoint, health span standpoint, and longevity standpoint, we just need different things. So, and different things in different phases of life. So I'm really excited. I don't have an exact date, but now I don't have to take as many pills, which is great because when you think about it, a lot of pills too contain fillers, and then they contain the caps. So you're consuming a lot of additional things that you really don't need by having to take all these different supplements.
It's exciting. Is this going to be something you mix into smoothie, mix into water? How
Yeah,
are people going to
water
take it?
probably. You can do a smoothie. I've definitely tried that too. It doesn't taste, unflavored is a big thing for me that I need to be able to offer an unflavored option. So, because I want absolutely no natural flavors of any kind. So yeah, you can do either, but I just think if we can make longevity more simple, the adherence is going to be so much better. I mean, when I travel, geez, it's like wild. It's like so many tins, so many different supplements. So I have to have like a whole bag of just my stuff. So I'm continually trying to make it easier for me to do these things and more time efficient because let's be honest, this is my profession, right? So a lot of other people don't have 4 hours a day to commit to this. Because we haven't even, we haven't talked about my hyperbaric oxygen and doing that for an hour a day. So it's like all of these things really add up. And if we can make it more efficient, I think more people will be interested in doing it.
All right. I want to talk about travel and what you bring along. But
Yeah.
first, let's finish the day, bring in hyperbaric oxygen, and give us what you'll have for dinner.
Yeah, so I do HBOT usually around like 4 o'clock. I bring some work in there too. So I'll, be reading studies or whatever. I bring stuff to do in there. So it's not just like 1 hour completely gone. But to talk about the hyperbaric oxygen protocol for a second. So each year I'm doing 2 different loading doses, we'll call it. So hyperbaric oxygen, it combines, pure oxygen or almost pure oxygen with a lot of pressure. So it looks like a little submarine for anyone that is not familiar. You kind of go in, close it up. I have a hard shell chamber, which is not very common in a home. The soft shell chambers are a little bit more accessible, but depending on what chamber you have, it goes into, let's say, deeper pressure. So the soft shells go to about 1.3 ATA to about 1.5. My chamber can go up to 2.0. And depending on the indication that you're using it for, that's where in comes the pressures. And I have a hyperbaric physician that consults me on all my protocols. So I'm very grateful for that. But the lower pressures actually can be really great for like neurological health and brain health. But those deeper pressures can get, if you want to think about it more, so like the deeper healing. And also some people with like mold and viruses find, good benefit with the deeper pressures as well. So my protocol is 2 different protocols per year. We have one protocol at the 2.0 ATA, which I call my body protocol. I'm doing 40 sessions of that. And those 40 sessions are done by 1 hour sessions done 5 times per week until you hit the 40 sessions. So my physician recommends that I don't do 7 days per week because hyperbaric does produce a little bit of oxidative stress. And if you're doing it 7 days a week, it's a bit too much. So I already did the body protocol for the year, and then I'll just do maintenance. And that can look like anything from 1 to 2, maybe 3 sessions per week at a little bit of a lower pressure. So I actually drop it down to 1.5. And then in the second half of the year, I'll do what we've identified as my brain protocol, which will be that 40 sessions again at the intervals of 1 hour, 5 times per week, but that's only at 1.5. So it's a very aggressive hyperbaric protocol. I am documenting data before and after, but I'm excited. We've known for a long time that hyperbaric can be great for people with TBIs, concussions, but we're now learning that it can actually extend telomeres, which are the end caps of our DNA. They shrink as we get older. They are a measurement of biological age, and we really can help with that. We're also looking at research in terms of like for men, erectile dysfunction, because it really helps the blood vessels in in the body to become stronger, more resilient. And, if you have issues down there as a man, you can assume that you're having issues with blood flow across the body in general, and cardiovascular health is incredibly important. So do that for that. They're doing research. We know now that hyperbaric can improve sperm quality. A lot of my friends are doing research on AMH, which is anti-Müllerian hormone, which is essentially a measurement of egg reserves for women. And it's a very important measurement. If you're listening to this and you're a woman and you want to get a lab related to fertility, I actually just posted an entire fertility series on YouTube, about a month ago. But AMH is a number I would definitely want to know because it tells you your egg reserve. Essentially, it's not a perfect marker, but we do hyperbaric. And then my husband usually comes home or wraps up work around 5:30. So I have dinner ready as soon as he's done. So 5 or 5:30, we have an early dinner. I always say you want to be completely done eating by the time the sun is down. So in LA, before daylight savings, that was really 5:30. So done eating by then. Then we go on a long walk. So we live in the hills in LA, which is great because we get a kind of zone 2, which is amazing because we're going up and down hills. So we do about a 55-minute walk. We come back in, we jump in the sauna. So I kind of change my sauna protocols depending on what my goal is. So I sometimes do them after exercise. I used to do it after exercise to really extend those exercise benefits, but now I'm doing it for sleep. So I'm doing it 2 hours prior to bed. So we do the sauna, but you definitely want to do it about 2 hours before bed, because if you do it too close to bed, it will actually keep your heart rate up too high and then your sleep will be compromised. So, we're jumping in the sauna, doing a sauna session together. Sauna is amazing, right? Actually, we just became owners of an amazing sauna company called Heavenly Heat. And I've recruited my husband from the YouTube talent agency world to now he's running that. So now we're both in the health industry. It's so fun. And we're now doing sauna every single day because of the fires in LA. But before that, the protocol was 4 times per week. The research is done on finished saunas, temp about 176 to about 200. I think some studies cite 212, which is super hot. But you would take the time down to more about 15 minutes, but it's 15 to 20 minutes, 176 to about 200, 4 times a week for that massive reduction in dementia, all-cause mortality, and cardiovascular events. I believe it's a reduction in dementia of about 66%, cardiovascular events by 37%, reduction in risk of all-cause mortality. It's absolutely amazing. And now we're living in a time unlike any other, where we are absolutely living in a toxic soup, not just here in LA because of the fires, definitely here in LA because of the fires. And I have the lab work to prove that. And that's why we're moving. But anywhere, we are just bombarded with endocrine disruptors, phthalates, plastics. We now know that plastics are accumulating in the brain at double the speed. We have found plastics in every single organ. Chronic disease is 60% of Americans have 1 chronic disease, 40% have 2. Women have 80% of the autoimmune conditions. Autoimmune conditions are on the rise. Cancers are younger than ever. And I believe a massive contribution is because of all these environmental toxins. So I think sweating at this point is a non-negotiable. We absolutely have to be sweating. So we do our sauna. We also take a couple binders before that. So that falls into the supplement category. We do a nice charcoal binder, and that helps to bind to the toxins. So some of these toxins from the fires that we're excreting helps to bind them and just excrete them easier. We do our sauna. And then and also just as a side note, as soon as the sun goes down, so when we're back from the walk, all the lights in the house are red. So I have lamps with red light. In the bedroom, it's red light. We do something, if you have an Apple TV, you can do a red light filter on the television. I never really watched television prior to being married, but my husband really enjoys it. So he didn't love the red filter at first because, it kind of messes up with the sports and stuff and the picture, but now he's gotten used to it. You could also do blue light blocking glasses, but wearing or blocking blue light is so incredibly important to your circadian rhythm, your melatonin production being increased. Same thing with eating, right? Light and food is a massive signal to the body as to what time it is. So if you're eating really late, your melatonin production will be suppressed. You won't be able to get into those deepest stages of sleep. And same thing with light. So all blue light is blocked. We wind down. That can look like reading. I always recommend avoiding anything anxiety inducing. Shows that are scary, looking at social media, checking email, anything that's going to induce your anxiety, just kind of try to eliminate that. And I try to get my resting heart rate as low as possible on Aura before going to bed. So for me, that looks like a breath work practice. And I've noticed that the lower I can get my resting heart rate before bed, the better my sleep quality is. And then of course, for other like sleep tips, we keep the room at 65. It's completely blackout. We can't see the hand in front of the face because we know even if light hits your body, that can also disrupt your, your sleep cycle. And we get in bed by 8:30. I would recommend everybody get in bed by 10, specifically women, because we know that if you stay up past 10, you can get that additional cortisol spike, keeping you up later, but also you get the most benefits for your hormones, if you can get in bed by 10 o'clock. So that is super important. We sleep in something called a Faraday cage. So this is an EMF blocking cage, and we have tested it outside of the cage and inside the cage. The EMFs are 0 inside the cage. They are obviously not 0 outside the cage. So it looks like a little canopy, but you tuck it in and it helps to block those EMFs. We also have this is really cheap off just Amazon. I think it's maybe like $30 or something, but a Wi-Fi switch. So it switches off our Wi-Fi router. But living in LA with homes, really close proximity, even if our Wi-Fi is off, it's still going to be probably reaching us. So that's why we have the EMF blocking cage. We also have an organic mattress because VOCs or volatile organic compounds actually can be off-gassed the entire night from the mattress. Things like formaldehyde can be found in mattresses, other known toxic chemicals. So making sure your room is as best set up for optimal sleep as possible is incredibly important. And my Oura Ring data, it shows that this is working because I'm consistently, 95, 96, 97. On Oura, I'm pretty positive you cannot get 100. I've never gotten 100. I have the best sleep of anyone, and I know I've never heard of anyone else getting 100. Have you?
I've never heard of anybody, no.
Yeah, on sleep. On activity, yes. Actually, I just bought a couple of other devices and I'm so excited because, we see a lot of people getting 100 on Whoop, like consistently, right? So I just bought a Whoop and I just bought another ring called a Cutest ring. So I'm going to start doing all three because I want to see what the difference is here. I'm just curious, like if I'm getting a 95 on Aura consistently, is that 100 every night on Whoop? Because I feel like it would be. So I'm excited to see that. And then I'll just put all the data out. So I'll say, this night it was a 94 on Aura and it was whatever it's going to be on Whoop, but I am excited to see the differences in the algorithms there. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And by 8:30, we are in bed. I'm going back and forth. I had a great conversation with Susan Soberg. She is an expert in all, Dr. Susan Soberg. She is an expert in all things cold therapy and sauna. And I asked her, I said, do you think that the infrared saunas are comparable to these Finnish studies? And she essentially said yes, and probably just increasing the time because the heat is not as high. So what I love about this other sauna that I have, the infrared sauna, is it has built-in red light therapy. So going back to optimizing my time, I can now do red light therapy and infrared, and I do some lymphatic drainage like dry brushing all at the same time. So now I'm getting 3 therapies in one, and for me that's a game changer because now I don't have to do the red light and then the sauna. So I do probably about half and half. With the Finnish sauna and then the infrared sauna because I simply love that I can stack these 2 therapies. I think that's also, the future of optimization is stacking therapies. I am involved in a company called Immortal have you ever seen the Immortal?
No, not yet.
It's amazing. I'll send you a link, but it is absolutely stunning. It's very new, but it combines multiple, biohacking technologies. So it has red light therapy, molecular hydrogen, PEF, which is actually a smaller version of PEMF. It has vibroacoustics, sound therapy, and this is all combined into one. So the idea here is that it needs to put you into a parasympathetic state before introducing the therapy so that your body can better absorb it. So it puts you into parasympathetic with the vibroacoustics and the sound therapy, and then you get the red light. So the body can better absorb the red light and everything. We know everything works better when you're in a parasympathetic state. And this thing feels like you are like almost on some euphoric journey. When you get out, you feel so refreshed because you got into that parasympathetic and you got all those therapies at the same time. Another really interesting thing about hyperbarics that I've recently found is that for me, it's dropping me into parasympathetic immediately. I'd never noticed this benefit before, but I started looking at my Aura Ring data, a lot of my stress data, and my stress will be engaged or whatnot on Aura. This probably as soon as the chamber actually compresses and it's at full pressure, heart rate drops immediately and I'm restored every single time. So for me, I am really loving that benefit.
If you enjoyed that clip, you're going to want to head over here and catch the full episode. I'll see you over there.
I was taking about 35 supplements a day. This is the first time I've announced this, but I've been working on something for the last 2 years that has now been able to really condense that. I think of my supplements in different buckets. So I have what are called like non-negotiable supplements.